to the show, everyone. I absolutely love my show, and I love what we're going to be talking about today. I love my guests that are on. We're live on Facebook. I do want to say hi to everybody out there. Like us and follow us. We're going to share the show later on. I have with me Tiffany Phelan. She's the owner of Senior Helpers. I also have with me Scott Fischer, the owner of Options for Senior Living. First off, before we came on today, we've been talking a little bit about AI, and I'd like to know how AI comes into play even with your businesses.
You guys won't believe this. My wife and my daughter are actually taking an AI marketing class right now on how to incorporate.
It's amazing.
Everything you turn on the radio or TV, it's always about AI. And so we literally asked, Stacy has her chat GPT, I guess work husband, his name is Bob. So she asked Bob, hey Bob, what are the top things that families are researching on Google when they're concerned about an aging loved one? And we got a list of questions from Bob that came right off of the AI technology.
Thank you, Bob.
We thought we might even take a little time today to talk about some of these. Is that all right?
Oh, I think it's great.
Okay.
I want you to do. The reason why is because we've talked a lot about this, and I'm just going to start it off this way real quickly. Is a lot of times people they wait till it's too late, or not that it's too late, but it becomes a cluster, whatever, you know. and we've experienced that. We know what that's like, and they don't want you to. So this is perfect for you to be doing this today. So I'm going to let you guys have the floor.
Well, that's awesome. Just to the point about letting things go, literally this week, and Tiffany, I know you got thousands of stories like this. I get a call from a family out of state whose brother lives here in Arizona. He's in the hospital. He has no powers of attorney expressed. He's got some advancing dementia. He's declining. Little that we know, as I start to peel back the question, as I'm questioning her and I'm peeling back the situation, he has given his home over on a handwritten will to his girlfriend who lives with him for no rent, and the sister in Chicago is concerned about her brother. And so when we ask people about, do you have your planning done, and do you have your powers of attorney in place, and do you have a trusted person to lean on to, if something happens to you and you don't have any children, we're not just bugging people. We're really concerned about what could happen to somebody, and there's people that have questionable motive. It is just part of our society.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
children can be terrible.
Well, and they can be wonderful. And I think that, and as our little list of questions that we're going to go through today is going to show you, is a lot of people want to be wonderful, and they don't know how to be wonderful, right? And so Bob / the guy that's going to make you work a lot harder in your marriage is going to show us is pulling in all these questions and being able to, as if you're listening here and you're an adult child and you have a parent who's not as young as they once were, right? If you want to say it that way, you might be thinking some of these things, and so we kind of want to go through some of the things that you might be thinking and answer some of those questions before you even maybe realize that you had that question. And so the number one question that was asked is signs my parent has dementia. So to me, this person, a lot of people are asking this question, number one. Bob says it's number one. A lot of people are seeing changes in their parents. They're not acting how they once acted, right? And they're getting concerned. I would say if you have some concerns, that's probably pretty valid, because no one knows your parents like you do.
Right.
Right. So if you're seeing those things. And so what do you do? What do you do if you think maybe your parent has dementia? Do you go up to him and say, hey Mom, I think you've got dementia?
That's a hard conversation.
Yeah, that one probably won't go over well.
That gets a slap
right?
in the face.
Yeah, that'll get you an absolutely, or maybe some soap if you're within arm's length of the sink. So anyway, what do you do in that situation? And I think one of the first things to do is educate yourself on really what is dementia and where do you go to do that. And I think one of the really great things that that Scott and I bring to the table is well over 40 years, maybe even 50 years of experience combined working with seniors with dementia. And what I love is even though I'm the owner of Senior Helpers and we provide home care, I'm out there in the field meeting families. I've done 5,000 assessments in my career. I know you said you've had 4,500 placements, which means you probably have done nearly 10,000 assessments with families. And so the first thing that I would say, if you think maybe there's something going on with your parent, is reach out to some of the experts, like the two of us. Definitely a doctor could be good, if they'll let you go to their doctor, great. Reach out to Alzheimer's Association maybe and start educating yourself about what are some of these things that what does this look like, right? What are you seeing and what might that mean?
Trust your instincts, trust your gut. The Alzheimer's Association has a 7-stage descriptive of the stages of dementia. And so I've literally read that with a family and said, if you read this, where does your dad fall on this picture? And then visualize where your dad is at. And they'll tell me, he's probably a stage 3. And you go, well, and then you're asking me, when is it time for assisted living? Well, you understand you're doing it, and this is where he's at on the scale, probably. I'm not a physician, but I'm using their criteria. And so it brings it into real life, for people. It doesn't mean they have to move tomorrow, but it might prompt them to call Tiffany. It might prompt them to do some home modification. It might prompt them to start taking some intervention at home to keep them safe.
I have something to say.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I had said that people do put their head in the sand. I know they know, they can feel it, they know there's something wrong, but they're afraid to talk about it. I think fear is an underlying reason of why a lot of people don't do a lot of things. But what I love about this show the most is being able to have everybody come on and be able to share and to educate. And that's what I love what you're doing here today. Go ahead.
Well, that brings up, so you said fear, and that just brings me back to the stages of grief, right? And so the first stage is denial. So we all start there, right, with everything that we're grieving, and depending on how quickly we move past that. But that fear is all wrapped up in that denial, because if your loved one is changing and you're noticing that definitely something's going on, some families are so stuck in that denial stage of the grief process, and of course, because we love our parents, we don't want them to have this horrible disease. But as long as we're in that denial part, we can't move forward. And so that's really the first thing, is to identify, well, maybe I haven't, made any decisions or reached out to anybody because I'm afraid of hearing what I kind of know to be true anyway. Right. And that, I think we both hear from families all the time. I've known this for years.
Right, it just confirms what they've already been feeling. And that's why I say to families, hey, if you're internally feeling that, like you said, Carol, something's not right, it trust your instinct, and then bounce it off to somebody else. Get like Tiffany said, get a professional, just get a point of view. We're free to talk to. Tiffany's free to talk to.
But what's great is you'll come in and do an assessment,
Oh, yeah.
And with your education, and both of you can come in and kind of talk to them. That's what you've got to have here. This is about having this information, writing it down, putting it in your phone, having it there, and using it. That's so important. Let me just give you Tiffany's number with Senior Helpers. That number is, where is it over here? Where is it? There you go. 480-360-4141. And Scott's, who's with Options for Senior Living, is 602-845-1320. We're going to go to a break soon. What would be something that you want them to think about before we go to a break?
Well, I think this leads us to where's the bottom line when you really want to enforce yourself with your loved one or your parents or whatever as an adult child. And I always told my mom, and I tell my clients, it's where safety gets involved. When you start crossing the line with safety issues, then that's big, right? That whole concept is large. So I'd love to talk a little further about, how do we keep people home safely? What are some of those markers and indicators, things like that?
And what do you want to say?
You know what? I think safety is really where it's at. That's when you make that decision that, I am going to have that uncomfortable conversation.
Put these numbers in your phone, 480-360-4141. You can also call Scott at Options for Senior Living at 602-845-1320. We're going to go to a break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk further. We're still live here, okay? We're still live. And that is something that is so important, because when you're talking with these people and you come in, I think I'd also like you to talk about what that feels like when you come in and do like an assessment and things like that. Because when you hear from you, you're putting them into a senior living, that's not with his view.
Possibly though, because Scott and I are actually working on something. Historically, what he's done as a placement company has been only to place people into facilities. So we're actually working on something where home care is part of the process, and so he
good.
may be placing
That's
home
perfect.
care.
I like
And
that.
so, right, give them the full spectrum of options.
Right.
And some people end up moving into facilities, say they downsize into an independent living. This is something that is never even discussed. Maybe a smaller home, in other words, the 2-story, 3,500 square foot home doesn't make sense for mom anymore, she's there alone. Move her to independent living where she doesn't have as much to maintain and they do the laundry, light housekeeping. And then bring in a caregiver to drive her to appointments, and maybe you don't need to go fully to assisted
I like
living.
that. I like that a lot.
So
Because a lot of
getting
people
more creative.
that's what they don't want that. They like, and they won't even talk about it, right? Because they just think, all you wanna do is have me out of here, and you want my money, and you want whatever, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Or
And
it could be moving to another smaller home, not even assisted or independent living. It could just be moving to a condo or patio home.
We're gonna launch another project. I have so many things. Stacy's getting ready to launch 2, one in Scottsdale, one in Mesa, a downsizers club to talk to that person. So some of our move management company partners are gonna be the centerpiece with Molly and Leah to run a downsizers club to talk about downsizing as a freedom liberating experience, not the giving up all of my life. It's not
Right.
that. And there's actually joy and there's freedom and there's some mobility that comes with that in a lifestyle that isn't hunkered down in a home you built for 60 years.
I think we should be talking about that. So I think that the conversation we just had really moves into this dealing with your stubborn aging parents.
Okay.
And then the way to combat one way to combat stubborn aging parents is to do it early instead of where they have to go to assisted living. Maybe the answer is just downsize.
Yep.
I think let's talk about that.
Okay.
That downsizing is an option that people don't really consider right now. They consider, like, if you're moving from your primary forever home, right, you're moving to assisted living. But there's so much that can happen in between those two things.
Right, I think that would
So,
have been great,
home
like for
care.
Karen, you know why? Because what she was forced to go into the home that she's in, that, the facility, all she does is sit there and think about where her stuff went.
Are you saying she's a stubborn aging parent?
Oh my God.
I got to meet her.
Yeah.
She's the poster child for stubborn aging parents.
She is.
You
She
have not
is.
met my Nana.
They're all. Looks like that's where we're gonna be like that too. So welcome back, everyone. At the break, we talked to Facebook land out there, and we've been talking about stubborn aging parents a little bit here, and you wanted to elaborate on that. You thought that was a really good conversation. Let's go for it.
You know what? When I saw on Bob's list over here that one of the questions is dealing with stubborn aging parents, I thought, boy, how many of your listeners have a stubborn aging parent? Possibly all of them, at least one.
Exactly. Now, all of us in here do.
Yeah.
All of us in here do. And so, or even most of my clients' children probably think they have a stubborn aging parent. So,
Or an in-law.
So, and it comes back to that, how do you introduce this idea of the 3,500 square foot forever home that mom's lived in with dad forever, and now dad's passed, and 3,500 square feet is a lot for one little old 85-year-old lady to take care of by herself.
Yeah.
So then, a lot of folks think that the next step is assisted living, right? That's the only next step. But I really want Scott to elaborate on some of the other alternative ways that you can make life easier for your parent in a way that does not, quote unquote, stick them in assisted living.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that we're seeing more of a trend is that people are getting out of the big house and moving into like a smaller their own residence, but a smaller residence. They're selling the big house, downsizing. Stacy and I actually did that personally ourselves a couple of years ago when the kids moved out. We went from a 5-bedroom house to a 2-bedroom house. Now I was carrying around stuff. My kindergarten spelling tests were still in the box.
Your own.
Oh, my own junk.
I have a box of those
Stacy's like,
too.
you got to get rid of this stuff, and I'm like, well, I don't even know why I'm carrying it. I just always have. That's what people tell us, right? They go in, well, I've always just had these things, or my kids don't want it. Well, okay, then it's time to get rid of it or make a plan. And so there's a freeing, liberating experience really on the other side of the downsize if they'll do it, if they'll trust us, and so they can still own their own place, but downsize and go through that kind of a liberating experience sometimes people would go earlier when their health is still pretty good. They could go to independent living where there's no licensed care. It's not like a hospital or a nursing home by any means. It's an apartment complex
Right.
that specializes in great food, a lot of energy, a lot of activity, things to do, new friends, and they would go that route and then partner with a company like yours, Tiff, and they could get care in as they need it, as they age and things go by, but they get the benefit of a new lifestyle and new friends. So.
You know, today it's so different than it was when my grandmother had to go to assisted living. It was different. Today, and they have so much is there, and only a few people would use it. You have these numbers that we're giving out here. These are 2 numbers you should be putting in your phone, and if you have an aging parent, you should be calling and getting it planned out early, because all of us have been through the other way, which is not fun. And it's really almost unfair, actually, to the senior, you know?
Well, think about this. I mean, some people, and we'll take the 3,000 square foot house as an example. There's a lot of maintenance that happens on an old house, right? And there's a lot of things that has to be done on just a daily and weekly basis. There's a lot of chores and things like that, and that as our loved ones get older, they have less gas in the tank to make it through the day, right? So if all the gas is being spent mowing the lawn and making the meals and doing the linen changes, which is actually really difficult for somebody with arthritis and limited mobility, if all their gas is spent on that, then when are they doing the stuff they love to do?
How many people out there listening have heard this from their parents? I'm getting older. I just can't do it anymore. I can't do it anymore, Carol. I'm getting closer to the box. This is what my dad used to say to me. And, you know, honestly, I think that I love what we're talking about here, because we're pushing it because we know what everybody has seen and what they've gone through with over and over and over again. It doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
No, absolutely not. I mean, what if your loved one had moved into an apartment, right, a smaller unit, or even a patio home or something like that, and then they don't have as much maintenance, right? Either zero if it's in an independent living facility, or maybe a little bit if it's in a patio home. Give them back some of their time, and then let's say they don't drive anymore. Let's say that's the big thing. And for a lot of folks that come to us for home care and finding caregivers, that's the issue. Is my mom doesn't drive, but she still likes to get her hair done. What if you just have somebody come in once or twice a week to do the grocery shopping and the hair and nails and things like that? But just doing that is going to get them 5 or 8 or even 10 more years living in a smaller, more manageable setting with a little bit of care versus, you know, biting the bullet and having to go to assisted living.
I also think people think it's really expensive, and it's not that expensive. I mean, it can be very affordable, and the only way you're gonna know is by having a consultation with them and let them come in and talk to you. Let me give out some information. I've been talking about the phone number, so let me do that. For senior helpers, it's 480-360-4141. You can check them out on their website. It's seniorhelpers with an S.com, and Scott his phone number is 602-845-1320, optionsforseniorliving.com. Go ahead.
Well, I still wanted to touch just a little bit longer again on the issue with the stubborn parents, because I do think there is a certain trepidation that as adult kids we don't want to get into a situation where we're banging heads with mom and dad,
And
or
they're
we're
kicking you out of the will.
and then they're wrestling back. Part of my mission is to help people have a normal process to this conversation, and that there's not aging is not a big surprise. We're all getting there, right? And so since we are, can't we start talking about it without it being an emotionally charged issue, or where fear just comes totally and it shuts everybody down? So if there's, and maybe Tiff's got some experience, maybe.
A little bit.
If you have some experience addressing some of this stuff, as you walk into somebody's home for the first time and they go, "Oh no, I'm not doing that," and there's that stubborn. It's the air is right there.
Well,
and you want to walk
sometimes,
into it.
and for the adult child, and we've all been the adult child, I think, in this room, and for the adult child, we all know there's a whole history, right? So I will make an admission. My mom did live with me for 5 years, and then for 1 year before she passed, her last year, she was in an assisted living. And I actually did not manage her care. You know why? She didn't think I knew anything. Me, the person who's done this for 2 decades, I know nothing according to my mother, so think about what everyone else's mother must think, right? And so what did I do? I actually called in our care managers. So every one of our clients has their own care manager, somebody who's dedicated to them, who comes by, makes sure there's a good quality of care, talks to our clients about their needs and their wants and desires, because that's a big part of home care. It's very personalized. And so make sure we're doing exactly what our client wants, make sure the quality's there. So my mom had her own care manager, and her care manager managed the care because she loved her care manager.
But you were managing the care
was so
manager.
smart. So the care manager is somebody whose check I write, right?
Exactly.
But she wouldn't take my advice, but she'd take her advice.
That's right.
So that's where you bring in Scott or you bring in me. You might get pushback.
I'm
Use
telling
the
you,
adult child.
it's perfect, because when you go in there by yourself, the first thing they're gonna say, you're not gonna tell me what to do,
Yeah.
and there's gonna be an argument, whereas when you have somebody there, it softens it.
We're there to educate. That's the big thing, and I know Scott has the same exact approach. We can't tell you what decision's right for you. Only you and your family can make that decision.
And
We're there to tell you what your choices are.
yeah, and we're, though the business is helping people find the right situation for placement, half of the people I've talked to go that route. There's another half of the people I talk to that go your route or another route, and just like you said, we're there to be educators, advocates, resources for people. And so there's a lot of times we're talking to them about home care right there. They don't need me now, they're gonna need me a year from now.
Mhm.
And we make that referral, or we connect them to Tiffany and her crew right away, and that's just a much better avenue for people.
People think they're gonna get sold.
Yeah.
That's all they think, is you're just gonna push me into doing this, and that is not the case at all.
We don't want people to lose
At all.
that.
I've known you now for, I've just started to get to know you, Scott, but Tiffany, I've known you for a very long time, and I know that your approach is what it is. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you now, they're the professionals, and they have been doing this for years. They bring together, how many years you say? Like 50?
Like probably 45 at least, if not
45
50.
years
Mhm.
of experience, and they are wonderful to work with. I've worked with you, so I know what it's like.
You had your own stubborn aging parent situation,
I
actually.
did.
And
It was my mother, my
But what-
ex-mother. I'm sorry, but
But what did we do? We educated her.
Mhm.
We talked to her about what her options were. Her first choice was not very reasonable, but instead of saying, no, you can't do that, I got to be in the position of saying, well, if you do that, here's, what your choices are, here's what it's gonna cost, here's what your outcome is. And she actually, like it or not, she made the decision that worked for her, which was moving into assisted living.
Mhm.
That's what she chose, given the reality that was kind of before her.
but if everybody had planned, this would have never happened, and she would have I think she would have been much happier, obviously, we know that for a fact. And this is what we're talking about here. We're talking about calling and planning and getting these, all of these questions that people are asking. We want you to get them answered through these people. They're the professionals, they have the experience. Again, for senior living, it is for senior helpers, it's 480-360-4141 or 602-845-1320 for options for senior living.
Awesome.
You have your own stubborn girl.
She was awesome.
awesome.
She was just so, I
She's the
loved
worst.
her.
Yeah.
No, you say she's the worst, and I'm like, I loved her, because she's no nonsense.
Because she
is no nonsense.
Ugh.
She's like, tell me what my choices are. And then her first choice was totally unreasonable. It was, I want to live at home with no assistance, and I said, well, so you spent a month in a nursing facility because you fell and didn't tell anybody, dragged yourself across the floor, tore up your skin, and wound up with an infection.
No.
That was the story. And so I'm like, so we tried the live by yourself with no help thing, but that was the outcome. Do you feel like it's going to be different next time? And then she wound up, after all that, she didn't make the decision with me sitting right there, but that was the decision she came to.
Do you know what I've heard? That I think that the older parents are, not our generation, but our older parents, they're very proud people.
Yes.
They're very proud people, and they don't want to be burdens. They don't want a lot. They think they can handle a lot more than they can.
But think about this, when they were our age, they were putting their parents and grandparents into facilities that were